So we're going to start with the first thematic panel session of the day, which is on data systems and data use. The chair of this session is Dr. Ibrahim Latif from Willa College. So now I hand over the floor to Dr. Latif.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning. Welcome to our first panel for today, data system and data use. In an era where data-driven decisions making across all sectors, understand the intricacies of data system and their effective use is more than, can you hear me? No. Oh. You can't see me, right? You can hear me. Oh, okay. We'll just do with the voice today. Okay. We have got 4 speakers lined up for this session. Our first speaker will discuss how geospatial data software has been used to the schools with equal access in mind. The second speaker will address policy options for educating students with complex learning profiles in the Maldives. Our third speaker will present on data-related components in multiplayer grants. And final speaker will present on connecting KIX with transformation agenda in the Maldives. Now I would like to invite our first speaker. I will first introduce our first speaker. Ibrahim Asif Rashid is the Director General of Policy Planning and Research Division of the Ministry of Education. He has Masters in Education Management from Mysore University of India. He started his education career in 2006 as a teacher in Majidia School. Along the way, he has been a school principal and superintendent of education. Since 2015, he has been working at the Ministry of Education in the Planning and Research Division and is currently heading Policy Planning and Research Division. I would like to invite Ibrahim Asif Rashid. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum and thank you, Dr. Latif. Thank you all. Today, actually, my session was supposed to be in the afternoon, and I'm here. The topic is school planning with equal access in mind and geospatial data software. So, while okay, so let's start. Actually, the access to education has been in discussion in the forefront for quite some time in the education and global agenda. So the dialogues and the agendas have been taken in, but equitable access from K to 12 was of concern. And in Sustainable Development Goals, SDG also to ensure inclusive and equitable education to promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And play key. You mentioned that was made in the Ministry of Education or at the central level. That everyone is sometimes not there. So it's one of the decisions actually, or that when we look into the data and the information that is available, sometimes surprises us with the decisions we have taken and forces us to change our decisions. And knowingly, but we kept quiet, why silent also. So this is one of the instances that we were forced to think again and revisit our policies because of the data we have gathered and we have seen. We are fortunate to take up this study with academia also. One of the participants of this data is Dr. Ahmed, and with me was Musa Adam, Nina, and Dr. Shafia was also along with me in this study. So their input was very important and key to changing the policy of providing access and equity. And to support the global need, KIX EAP learning cycle 2, we focused on, as I said, equitable access to education with special focus on your special data in educational planning. This was our first experience with this, with the assistance from IIEP and training. We were able to use these data, and it was really amazing to use these data. So the program was actually hosted by NORAG, and as I said, it's proposed by IAP. The people I have mentioned, the 5 of us work together. Some of them are not with us, and some have come into the Ministry of Education, like Dr. Ahmed has come in. Musa is working elsewhere, and Nina is working in the UNICEF now as a planning officer. So these actually gave us insights to our decisions. In all schools providing lower secondary, which we were very much aware. We knew not with resources available in the schools and especially in the outreach, we were aware that it is not there. But interesting thing found is that some of the islands that or the accessibility distance and things is there. Secondary student needs to be relocated to the island, and due to our policies, there are those who did not have the access to high secondary education, which is Wow et al. And Alif Dal et al. At the time. So in Alif Dal et al., K-12 was there, but because of the restriction in the policy that made the school to sometimes have some years and not to have the others, because it requires for you to have 10 students in a batch. And if they could not get 10, they are not allowed to continue. And Bhavato being one of the smallest atolls in population, very small population, they have never started A-level or higher secondary education in the atoll. So for these students to travel or to go to the other islands or other atolls was of a concern even at that time. But when we look back, as you see in our previous diagram, the red ones actually marked here is Alif atoll and Bav atoll, we say it's quite nearby. So it has been ignored and the policy has been going on. But when we look into the data and the traveling distance and all these things, it concern us again to rethink and to go back to the policymakers. So this analysis identified the issue of access to higher secondary education based in on ISKCON in Malé city and Ado city also, because Malé city is connected via bridge to Hulu Malé, but all higher secondary education institutes were in Malé. Every day, the kids who were living in Hulu Malé also had to travel to Malé. And in Ado city, it's concerned that it's interconnected, but we have forgotten about the other island, one island away. So again, the accessibility equity question arises. Are they given the chance? And daily traveling, different issues different kids has on traveling also. So Ulumale being developed, and at the time the second phase was also being discussed and being people on. So I said Aduato, this was the connected islands were Gain, Fedu, Mardu, Mardu, Fedu, Hitadu through causeways. And students living in these adjoining have the access to Ado High School, and there was bus available there. But the other island did not have. So there's a challenges for the traveling also, and even for the small and isolated islands. So the outcome of this case, or we discussed and we decided, took up with the policy related people, and MOE changed the policy. So with the available resource, providing additional resources to go up with the accessibility. Changed its higher secondary education policy to enable and to have an exception clause to allow smaller islands or smaller atolls like Wow Atoll to have. Yeah. So to have higher secondary, first time in history in 2021 September, A-level was started in Wow Atoll and in Arifka Atoll also. So this decision based on the data we gathered up and took up made the history in the country that all atolls has A-level accessibility. So that's the first step that we're there. So it is actually the geospatial data that helps to address, actually knowing that that policy had a flaw, but still it was kept there like it. That but when we looked into it with the whole country map in front of us and identifying where it is there and the distance, then it was interesting and to talk about it. So it really addressed the equity education available in the atolls of the country. So it's a learning cycle 2 on using geospatial data. It provides tools on the map of location of schools and identifying the bottlenecks which we have in provision of higher secondary education. And reflecting on this case study, it's crucial to have equal access in mind and use geospatial data in entire school planning process in other countries too. So the school construction and rehabilitation in the country will help. So now when we provide the physical facilities, additional facilities, we keep this in mind. And actually the process that has been taken up in 2021 did not stop it there. So now we have a higher secondary school in Hulu Malé. So this process is still going on, and more decisions and more policy changes will be coming in the future to provide access or universal accessibility of higher secondary education in the country. But those decisions need to be taken up, and this actually exercise help us to go and think about it, to sit and think about it. Thank you very much.
That was very hopeful to know that now all adults have access to higher secondary education. Thank you. Before we go ahead with the second presentation, I would like to share
Algona ki valköyde schoolga elevel emme furtam fektir ebechke dariore. Mi fursat algon mena libigen demo algonda vara bawr fasayata ka kurmatero. Algonda yagin algonda ayku kievi hendari varum ves mikama ipas wanakan ade rashuga algon pure elevel kievam ke fursat libumon fan naiku rashuga purum ke fursat ves libigen dia. Ege sabun algonge keuma vara bawre hita libigendia adi algonge ehennunna algonge visnumaka mati Malé badaluma elewa kewa and Malé badal rumai ko vara bawre gonje huntam viskoi mative so ehuriha gonje huntake effaratake dia rashuga elewa fashigendia hisabun.
Okay, that was a video from one of the students who completed her year 12 while she was at her own island, at her own home. So she was just expressing how helpful and the benefit of being able to stay and spend time with their parents while studying the higher secondary. So that was really good, and thank you. That was a good milestone. Before we go ahead with the second presentation, I would like to share how this session will proceed. Each presenter will have 15 minutes of presentation time. Following that, we will have our discussion, providing his remarks, followed by 30 minutes of Q&A, question and answer time. All right, now I would like to welcome our second speaker, Dr. Nina. Dr. Nina Ali is a senior lecturer specializing in teaching and learning at the Faculty of Engineering, Science and Technology, Maldives National University. She has extensive experience teaching at both the undergraduate and postgraduate level. With a strong background in teaching and learning mathematics and research methods, Dr. Nina, a proponent of utilizing technology to enhance education, is committed to innovative teaching practices. In addition to her teaching responsibilities, Dr. Nina serves as an associate editor for Computer Science and Information Technology of Maldives Journal of Engineering and Technology, MJET. She received her PhD in education from Universidad de Duesto in Bilbao, Spain, and Master of Education Mathematics and Technology from University of Adelaide in Australia. Now I would like to welcome our second speaker, Dr. Nina.
Assalamu alaikum. Today I'm going to discuss about the educational challenges faced by students with complex learning profiles. And this is like a case study that we have completed in the Learning Cycle 4. And it is a collaborative work between Dr. Wissam Musa, Aishat Hassan, Abdul Hamid, Amnat Shazni, and myself. So I'm not going to go into detail on the context. However, as you can see from the figures, about a quarter of the population are students, and out of that, 51% are boys and 49 are girls. And because of the unique geographical setup, it significantly impacts the educational policy planning and distribution of resources equally to all schools. Looking into the education system, in 2015, a new national curriculum framework was introduced And it transitioned from 5 to 3-2 system, that is 5 years of primary, 2 years of elementary, and 3 years of lower secondary, 2 years of higher secondary. As you can see from this framework, with the introduction of the new curriculum, kindergarten or the foundation level is considered part of the formal schooling, as well as key stages were introduced from K1 up to KS5. And I would also like to highlight that education is provided free from the government, starting from the foundation level up to grade 12, as well as undergraduate level, and a provision of equal educational resources and commitment to, that is to ensure that all the students receive equal education, a quality and equitable education. The very first SEN or special education policy was introduced in 2013, and it was revised in 2021 following the Education Act of 2020. And the main aim is to create a positive and supportive environment for children. And one of the objective of this policy is special needs education will be, these children will be taught in the mainstream classes rather than separately. And so this is also to ensure equal educational opportunities are provided for all students, including students with complex learning profiles. And this is how actually we have used IIEP policy tree analysis to identify the root causes of the challenges in educating SCLP students. And as you can see that we have identified 3 main issues. First is school location, school infrastructure, teaching skills, and basically how it is the factors, basically it's starting from the teacher supply and school supply, and dropout and push out factors. And these are the things that we will be focusing in this case study. And addressing these bottlenecks is crucial for improving educational outcomes for SCLP students. In teaching skills, we have also included the teacher qualification as well. As you can see from this diagram, we do have a high net enrollment rate of SCLP in our schools. And however, we have also noticed that there is a high demand of educating these students in Greater Malé region. A lot of families tend to migrate to Malé region, and this is like something that we need to study more in depth. Why parents are moving? Is it because of the education? The schools are not providing enough, do not have enough facilities or teachers or something. So this is something that we need to investigate further. But the good thing is we do have a high enrollment of SCLP students. Currently, there are 2,100 teachers in Malé region schools. Out of that, 81 of the teachers do not have any formal training or are not qualified, I would say, but they may have exposed to different training programs that is offered by the Ministry of Education. Policy requires 1 SEN teacher per 6 students, that is 1:6 ratio, with mild and moderate SCLP cases, and per 1 for severe cases. So, however, there exists a gap in fulfilling these requirements, which impacts the educational support that SCLP students receive. For instance, if you look at the Malé figures, 224 teachers, at the time that we did this case study, 224 teachers are needed in Malé region schools. However, there were only 159 qualified teachers and 35 were unemployed were employed, but they do not have a teaching qualification. However, I would like to note down that Ministry of Education is working very hard in training these teachers. They have actually sent 2 groups of teachers to train abroad, Malaysia as well as India. So hopefully we will get these numbers lower in 2 or 3 years' time. This is one of the other factors that we have looked into: construction of new schools in order to meet the increase in population demand, especially in the newly developed area in Hulu Malé Phase 2, where currently there's only 1 operational school and 1 temporary TINU school. Still, classes are conducted in this school. However, efforts are underway to address this pressing need. Recently, Education Minister Dr. Ismail Shafil laid foundation for the construction of a new school in this area, and he emphasized that there is a necessity of establishing at least 4 new schools in this area and 1 in Phase 1. So this initiative of the new government reflects the commitment to provide accessible and quality education to all residents in Hulu Malé area, ensuring that educational infrastructure keeps pace with the growing community. Looking into the transport, public transport is free of charge for students in uniform. And also Ministry of Education is working on developing a transportation policy to further support student mobility. Now, in many of the schools, we do have different type of inclusive programs. As you can see from this chart, we do have home-based learning programs, mainstream programs, mainstream readiness, early intervention programs. And in cases wherever possible, students are transitioned to mainstream classes, or separate classes are conducted to these students and later transferred to the mainstream classes. Unfortunately, we have not got any comprehensive data on school infrastructure of all the schools from the MIMIS. However, the data that we have received from the Department of Inclusive Education, you can see the highlights. There is a significant gap in infrastructure accessibility in schools across the Greater Malé region. As you can see from the graph, some of the facilities are not accessible to all the students, such as laboratory or library, which 56. This is the only data that we have got from the Malé region schools. And we have come up with some recommendations. So addressing these challenges faced by students with complex learning profiles requires a comprehensive approach. And here are some recommendations to overcome these bottlenecks. First one is train human resources. We need to conduct a need analysis to identify the specific SEN specialization required by each school, so that we can have focused training programs. Develop and implement nationwide SEN training programs for teachers. Second one is focus on inclusive pedagogy, include SEN training in both pre-service and in-service teaching programs. Even now, we do have some units, 1 or 2 units are there in each teaching program. However, we need to evaluate these programs just to ensure that all the necessary components are included in the curriculum. Improve infrastructure, formulate specific building codes for the construction of new schools to ensure they meet accessibility standards. Evaluate and modify existing schools to enhance their accessibility to all students, for all students. develop transport policies, provide designated transport for school children, especially those with special needs, to ensure safe and timely commutes. By now, they have to use the public transport, and especially during the peak hours, it is not very easy for students, especially with SCLP students, to travel and even to attend some extracurricular activities. It's not very easy for them. So by implementing these measures, we can create a more inclusive, supportive educational environment that enables our students to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nina. Thank you. Our next presentation is on data-related components in multiplier grant, presented by Dr. Harsha Atrupane. Is a lead economist in the World Bank. He has a PhD and MPhil in economics from University of Cambridge and a BA in economics, first class honors from University of Colombo. He has been the program leader for human development for Maldives, Nepal, and Sri Lanka in the World Bank. He has worked and written extensively in the field of human development, education, economics, higher education, general education, labor economics, welfare economics, poverty reduction, health, social protection, economic reform, and governance. His World Bank work covers several countries in Asia, Europe, and Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great pleasure to be here. I came specially for this event. Thank you for inviting me. And I will present very quickly the plan with the GPE multiplier funds to develop a new education management information system requested by the Education Ministry and the local education group. So essentially what the new EMIS will do, and of course we have a lot of this in the history of EMIS in the Maldives, there will be 5 modules in the 5 sets of information in the new EMIS. There will be a student information system. There will also be the human resource information system. There will be an administrative data-driven information system, and there will also be a financial and accounting system, and there will be a statistical information system for planning and monitoring. These are standard components of an EMIS, which we will see. And in these systems, there is also the idea that there should be information that is required for education planning, monitoring, and also any data-driven decisions that you have to make at the level of each institution, as well as of schools. But there will have to be very careful and detailed development of what actually goes in under each module, because there are a variety of issues that arise in terms of usability, in terms of need, but also security issues and data protection issues. So just as an example, if you take student information, there is student information that you require, but the moment that you move to the kinds of information that you would put in about children with special education needs, or children who need alternative learning pathways, then you need special security about also revealing that information beyond whichever groups need to know that information. So it's not the same as the kinds of information that you would do with a standard child. So this is all work in progress. There's a lot of information already available and ideas from our existing work on management information systems, but there is more work to be done. And then will now be necessary as the EMIS is developed. So the idea is that although the World Bank is the grant agent for the multiplier funds, the actual financing and implementation is with the Ministry of Education. So the funds come to you. And the first step is that the Ministry of Education will need an individual consultant who has the skills to be able to plan or to be able to anticipate the design of the EMIS, and also hopefully to be able to monitor its implementation through the sequence of steps. So some of you are familiar with the idea of a design and build consultancy when you have school construction. So here you have the needs for the construction of the EMIS in terms of designing and then supervising it. And that consultant will have to develop the technical specifications in dialogue with all of you in order that there can be a bidding process for a firm that will help build this EMIS. So the technical specifications are extremely important because often EMISs fail because the technical specifications were not adequately developed at the stage at which the whole EMIS was being conceptualized. And then, of course, there will have to be a procurement of a firm that will have the required skills, the IT skills and the education skills to be able to develop a good EMIS. And this is also a very challenging task because usually what we observe is that IT specialists think in a particular way, they have a certain paradigm. And then education specialists, education planners, education management people think in a completely different paradigm. In fact, we often say you could think of the education folk working east to west and the IT people go north to south. And then it's very important to be able to make sure that those two lines intersect in ways that are useful and needed by y'all. And then the procurement process also can be very challenging. What we've seen in the Maldives is that when there are large procurements and they go to the Ministry of Finance for procurement, there can be lengthy delays in the whole procurement process. So the Education Ministry will have to interact closely with the Finance Ministry to ensure that the procurement happens efficiently. And then, of course, the development of the EMIS is with a firm, but it will have to be very closely monitored and supervised by the Education Ministry, because otherwise you may find that the firm develops a product that doesn't quite fit your needs and your requirements. So that is an extremely important step. And ideally, the consultant who designed the bidding documents and the technical specifications should be available through the entire process of developing the EMIS with you all in the Ministry of Education. And then that development process also has many actions inside it. So ideally, the EMIS would be developed as a prototype, as a pilot EMIS. Then you observe how this prototype actually runs, how it is implemented. And then you learn lessons from that prototype and go back to the EMIS and then develop it. And there's probably an iterative process. It won't be just 2 steps, one prototype and then the final EMIS. There's probably a process by which there will be a learning period through which the EMIS will eventually be finalized. And then, of course, we also need an EMIS that can be used by the staff of the Ministry of Education and by schools. And that requires the human resource development of education staff, both at the national level, the ministry level, as well as the school level. And there is a plan for that. And part of that work is also actually up to the firm. The firm itself needs to make sure that the schools particularly are able to handle this EMIS, because the schools are the data entry point for a lot of the information that will be in the EMIS. And then, of course, there is the final implementation, and not just the implementation of the EMIS, but the utilization of the EMIS. for decision making at the level of each ministry agency, as well as the ministry, the steering committee, as well as schools. And this is overall going to be a very challenging task because there are so many points at which this information will be used. So we will see how over the next 4 years that the MIS will be developed and utilized, how that will work out. But of course, from the World Bank side, we'll see how best we can also support you. And so thank you very much. I'm afraid I have to actually rush to catch a plane back to Colombo, but you're welcome to ask any questions you like. I'm sure State Minister Ahmed, as well as the Director General Asif and Shafi and Aishat here will be very willing to answer any questions you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We wish you a safe travel. Bon voyage. Thank you. Final presentation is by Mazina Jamil, Program Specialist Education and Skill Development at UNICEF Maldives. Mazina joined UNICEF in 2011 as a program specialist overseeing education, health, and child protection programs. Currently, Mazina is the lead for education and skill development and youth engagement program in UNICEF. Her portfolio includes education policy, resource mobilization for education, education transformation, with a focus on digital learning, curriculum reform, teacher development, and inclusive education. She also provides stewardship for and youth skilling and engagement programs. Before joining UNICEF in 2011, Mazina worked with the government of Maldives in the Ministry of Gender and Family in child protection for 13 years before joining UNICEF. Thank you. We would like now welcome Mazina.
As I was sitting there, I was constantly looking for a vantage point where I can stand and do my presentation, which can offer me a good view of everybody else, and also everybody else can see the speaker here. But now that I'm standing here, I'm of the view that this is a good view, and this is the vantage point. But allow me to move flexibly, because as I was sitting there, the speaker over here was completely invisible. And this became a big barrier to communication. So allow me, if I move back and forth, please bear with me, which is because I want to interact with you and have an engagement with you. Thank you. The purpose of my presentation is to help you to connect KIX with ongoing GPE initiatives, ongoing as well as planned initiatives, because, thank you so much. Initiatives, because it's very, very important that the KIX agenda is aligned with direction of travel in the education sector, especially. Yesterday and today, as I mingled with colleagues and with co-workers, with counterparts who had engaged with KIX, it occurred to me that some of the KIX initiatives were unknown to the implementing partners. For example, when I sat at a certain table, even today, the people sitting at the table was even asking me, when was this done? We weren't aware of this. Yesterday, the same kind of, yesterday when we were at the same table, some of us thought, wow, I mean, better it's not too late, but all of this work that's done need to be available to everyone in a one place, in a one-stop place where everybody knows, the go-to place for that would be KIX portal, which is available here and there. So for me, my presentation made sense to me. So I'll try my best to make it sensible to you so that you are aware of what's to come and then identify entry points for potential collaboration. For potential collaborations, partnerships, and synergies so that we all move in unison towards one direction. The story I'm about to unravel to you has a title called Education Transformation. It's exciting, it's promising, it's ambitious, but it's also humongous if we try to do it alone. So if everyone that I see, all the beautiful, energetic faces that I see here, get excited and tell us later, please make us partners, please make us be a part of this agenda, this journey, then the purpose of my presentation is achieved. I'll try my best to achieve that objective. Without further ado, as I said, it's a partnership. For now, it might just say, just have few partners here, but it's a journey, it's an evolutionary journey, and I hope in 4 years' time, if I'm given an opportunity to do this again, I'll be able to have a huge list of partners here. Moving on. The story begins as we were coming out of COVID-19. COVID-19, which had disrupted the entire world's education system in particular. Without further elaboration, all of us know when COVID disrupted all of us, we were already grappling with a learning crisis, a global learning crisis, and some of us were in denial. Some of us were in denial, and we needed a slap on our face to really come to accept the truth. And COVID was that slap. COVID, learning loss, COVID school closures, COVID disruption in society, everything led us to believe that we can no longer assume business as usual, particularly in education, when so many of our children were either out of school, either had problems coming back to school, or even were fearful of coming out of their homes and meeting people. Because for 2 years, they had to hide their face. And mostly, for example, for adolescents and children who had unidentified mental health disorders, or undiagnosed or untreated disorders, or familial mental health disorders, it was a very painful ordeal for them to deal with. And during COVID-19, after COVID-19, we were discovering that there were a lot of marginalized children, and children who were already vulnerable and marginalized before COVID-19 were actually doubly jeopardized. For example, children with disabilities, children with, as I said, long-term medical illnesses, children who were moving from place to place, like, for example, state care, children in difficult circumstances, children in conflict with the law, children who were on the brink of being pushed out of education system. There were a number of children who never came back to school, but the data is unavailable, but there is anecdotal evidence that there were children who didn't come back to school or preferred, to do other things. So while we were trying to figure what was going on and how to deal with this, GPE sent us a very, hopeful, promising communication asking GPE member countries to access potential funding for education transformation. And by this time, the globe was talking about education transformation. As you know, in 2022, the General Assembly was specifically focused on education transformation, which made world leaders pledge commitment for education transformation, particularly to increase domestic and international finances for education. The GPE was part of it, and GPE was playing its part by asking member countries to access these funds called, the education transformation funds, and there are different types of funds. But the condition was that all applying countries needed to have what they called a partnership compact. Those of you who are familiar, but I don't see familiar faces, those of you who are familiar with the education sector planning that took place in 2019, which sealed Maldives membership in GPE, was the first of its kind in the Maldives. A sector plan of that nature, supported so widely and consulted so widely. However, regretfully, that sector plan could not be implemented because in 2020, was it 2020 COVID? Yes, 2020. See, we have a way of forgetting painful experiences, right? 2020, COVID came and threw the sector plan out of the window, and we were forced to improvise as we moved on and navigate unknown waters. So the sector plan was replaced by the partnership compact, which is basically an articulation of a government's priority in a particularly chosen specific area. Sector plan, as you may know, is a very big document, wide document, very cumbersome, very ambitious and hard to implement. GP had learned the lesson by then and said, let us have a lean compact, partnership compact that focuses on a single priority area around which countries can mobilize domestic and international resources. It provides a roadmap for development partners and other collaborators to join forces with the government to bring a change in that particular reform area. Maldives chose equity and inclusion as the reform area for education transformation. But this doesn't mean that education transformation doesn't happen in other areas. All of the other areas are necessary, but the GPE resources would be focused on making a dent in a single area which the government has identified as a huge priority. This was done using an evidence-based approach. Initially, an enabling factor analysis was done, and then the partnership compact was done in a consultative manner. The key areas under the partnership compact are 5, and they said, we will focus on education data, strengthening the evidence base, because my God, that is a very, very weak area. Everybody was unanimously saying data and evidence for policy making is our biggest weakness. Then they said, coming out of COVID-19, remediation and learning loss recovery is paramount for us. We should make it a priority area. Then the government and stakeholders said, teacher capacity development should be overhauled. Teachers need to be reskilled, upskilled, up-to-date with modern technologies, modern pedagogies. And then curriculum implementation should be looked at with an equity and inclusion angle, a lens, and we should also provide inclusive learning environments, and inclusive by which I mean not only children with disabilities, but as I said in my preamble, children with all sorts of vulnerabilities that might push them out of the education system. And then, which meant that the GPE provided grant and the the stakeholders and the Ministry of Education decided that for certain areas we will be mobilizing certain GPE grants. So as Harsha mentioned a while ago, GPE multiplier was decided to be used for data and evidence, and the grant agent for that was decided to be World Bank. For the rest of the 2 initiatives, UNICEF was the grant agent, UNICEF is the grant agent, and it covered education system transformation and system capacity, looking at education sector planning in particular. I'll not go into the details. All I want to say is that education transformation grants are only catalytic funds. It will not address all of the ailment of the education sector, and which is still a drop in the ocean. It might sound a bit big because we're so excited, but it requires additional domestic resource mobilization and international support to fully implement the transformation agenda. The overall agenda looks at with an objective of transforming education ecosystem. And remember, we've moved from system to ecosystem. From an ecosystem approach where we look at all levels that would impact education, particularly with the child in the middle, and to ensure that every child completes a full cycle of education with appropriate learning and is able to smoothly transit from school to work, from learning to earning, regardless of gender, age, ethnicity, but with a specific focus on children with disabilities and children with marginalized backgrounds. The program Education Transformation Agenda's reach is all children. 500 specific programs look at the equity angle of training specific types of teachers for certain locations, certain geographical locations, for certain subject areas, etc. And looking at upgrading the entire teacher force, an estimation of 10,000 teachers and 81,000, more than 81,000 students. The total value of the system transformation grant is 5 million and system capacity is 1.6 million. As I said, 6.5 million is just a drop in the ocean, as you know, because the need of the system is just much greater than the resources available. And this transformation we have said to be an ambitious goal to be achieved. It's not an end in itself, but it's a journey that will begin and make a tangible transformation within 4 years. This here is a very colorful demonstration of the transformation journey. I need to see it and it move around. Where, for instance, we're looking at three key elements of education transformation, where we're saying we need to focus on curriculum enhancement. We need to focus on creating inclusive and safe school environments. Where we need to look at teacher development and teaching, because teachers are at the heart of education. We call these key areas program component areas. In each component area, you find sub areas where we call the nuances, the elements of transformation that exist. For example, curriculum improvement is a major area. 11 or 12 years into the implementation of the curriculum, everybody is saying that the intended curriculum and the implemented curriculum has a big gap. Although it was competency-based initially, we're still unable to move away from the didactic model of teaching, and the 21st century skills acquisition and readiness for work, readiness for life has still not been achieved. So the question is, what went wrong? That is precisely the question that we are asking during the transformation agenda. What went wrong? How do we rectify it? What kind of support do we need? So here, NIE said, you know what? We have been, pushing beyond our weight. It's time to reskill us, upskill us, expose us to how other countries are doing this, because Maldives is not the only country doing curriculum transformation. So expose us to them, build our capacity. So here, one of the big priorities is to build NIE's capacity and everybody else who's collaborating with NIE on making curriculum do what it's supposed to do. Then coming up with integrated delivery models. Many teachers during our consultation said to us that curriculum delivery has become quite a painful, tearful journey for them, because it was actually, the trainings were not adequate. They needed more support, but they didn't know how to move. So some of them actually improvised, innovated, and became self-experts, which is good. But others were saying, no, we're still doing what we were initially trained to do, but we don't know whether we're doing it right. So the transformation agenda includes providing schools and teachers with curriculum delivery models that can be tried, tested, and adapted. Also, curriculum monitoring. Curriculum monitoring apparently happened to be a weak area. Maybe it was because of lack of clarity on who is the business owner for curriculum monitoring. Is it NIE? Is it QAD? Is it But there was a big gap there, which I think everybody has identified as a major area. Digital learning. As you know, digital learning, nobody has disputed that COVID-19 has proved it to be a game changer. For Maldives, things would have been very, very dire if Maldives did not have adequate readiness for digital learning at the onset of COVID-19. Thankfully, towards the end of 2019, a considerable number of schools were equipped with digital devices, namely the tablets, and significant number of schools were given, I think, computers for teachers, which enabled to barely manage. But very soon, they had a very steep learning curve. And before COVID-19 was over, I can proudly say UNICEF was able to support approximately 45% of the teacher force to be trained in G-Suite, right? Shuhu and Asif were my partners in crime, so they're nodding along with me, So it's a steep learning curve, which enabled, if we had not provided digital learning in the way we had, it was not perfect. Nobody wanted it perfectly, but I think Maldives went beyond expected level, So kudos to all of you. So digital learning remains at the very top of the digital agenda. And again, Nina also made reference to the minister's speech he made yesterday, in which he again talked about, using AI to train teachers. And I was like, aha. So it was like music to my ears, and again, so for me, okay, that's going to transform again teacher training. And that's going to put teachers at par internationally, because everybody is now talking about AI, of course, double-edged sword, but how do we use it? We've always used these double-edged swords to our best advantage. And then digitalization of curriculum. So this was something Ministry of Education had started before COVID-19, but honestly, let me take pride in saying, this is my baby. This is my baby, and honestly, I am ready to retire once this is digitalization and interactive learning materials. Every year, schools, Ministry of Education grapple with furnishing the schools with the textbooks. Why should we be in this day and age furnishing schools with paper-based textbooks? Cost, environment friendliness, bag heaviness of the bag size, and all of that make us wonder if there's another alternative. So this GPE grant promises us, the realization of that objective of transforming education by making all learning materials digitally accessible. Learning loss recovery will continue to be a priority because learning loss has not been recovered. Learning loss is accumulating. And is actually pushing children with disabilities and children with other kinds of adjustment issues out of the system. Multiple learning pathways. Multiple learning pathways introduces non-academic areas so that learning is not necessarily equated with academic learning. Learning for life, learning for work. It also provides inclusive learning hubs and assessment of skills programs that are provided currently in schools. Quality assurance and learning assessment is one major area, as you know, and strengthening institutional support, institutional capacities, teacher development, again here, knowledge exchange, teacher shortages, continuous professional development. I think this is kind of the bread and butter of the KIX initiative, to facilitate the global learning exchanges, regional learning exchanges, intercultural learning exchanges, so that education and learning and professional development is borderless. So let me quickly go into, I will not go into this, but if you have the interest and curiosity, you can probe me later. This just gives a little bit of detail into what each of these elements entail. Okay, so let me quickly go back there. Along with this, we are also rolling out another GPE grant, which is focusing on strengthening systems ability, education systems ability to do gender responsive, evidence-based education sector planning. Education sector planning, education sector coordination, education sector financing are three major weak areas as identified in the enabling sector analysis. Sector analysis also looks at ways of mobilizing additional resources, as I said. For the first time, financing frameworks and planning frameworks will be instituted, but I didn't want to go into the details of it because that program has not yet been validated with the local education group. However, I think this is suffice to say that the crux of that program is sector planning, sector coordination, and sector financing. This is just an overview of the research agenda that comes with education transformation. This is not exhaustive. This may be specific, but I just wanted to project it to you to show to you, as researchers, as academic institutions, and as think tanks, how can you partner with Ministry of Education and its co-partners along these very specific research areas, and in general, the major transformation elements that I've just shown to you. So this is just like a snapshot of the research agenda. It's a 4-year program. If you are interested to discuss further, we are happy to have another stakeholder consultation and let us know your interest. And then we are happy to do that. Let me conclude my presentation by simply saying that the transformation agenda also entails revision of the local education group. The local education group is a platform instituted by virtue of being a GPE member state. The GPE support architecture requires a country to have a multi-sectoral, high-impact, highly functional local education group that brings together a range of inclusive stakeholders to push the education agenda. So for the first time, we are giving the mandate to the leg to look at evidence-based information, data, and research before they make their decision. So therefore, the future KIX research initiatives will have the audience of the leg, will come and present their findings to the leg and get that validated and have feedback received so that, all the leg members, all the other stakeholders, most of the stakeholders will actually know the KIX agenda in the Maldives. And then it will be again, that one-stop place that people will go to for education data, for education policy making. Over.
Thank you, Mazina. I know there are so much you would like to share, but we are in short of time. I do agree. There is accumulated learning loss. Recent World Bank reports indicates that there is 4.32 years of learning loss in 12 years schooling, right? And happy to see there are so much opportunities available. Okay. Thank you very much. Now I'll hand over to this panel's discussion, Dr. Ahmad Mohammed, for his remarks.
Thank you all the presenters for very insightful presentations. And in this panel, we had 4 presentations. The first 2 presentations are output of the learning cycles, the KIX learning cycles. And the last 2 presentations for the presentations are from the grant agents of the GPE fund. In the first presentation, Mr. Arsi from MOE highlighted about the use of data, especially using QG software, what we call the geospatial data in planning process. And from his presentation, we identified a very significant success story, which is the introduction of A-level or higher secondary education in all the atolls of the country in the year 2021 in October. And I was lucky enough to engage in that learning cycle in the mid of 2021 as a team of 5 members. And we collected the geospatial data and we analyzed the data using the QG software. And then from the analysis, we identified that there are 2 regions or 2 atolls where there were no A-level schools. And we advocated and proposed this change in our final product of the learning cycle. And also we communicated it with the Ministry of Education, and Ministry of Education changed the policy and then introduced A-level in all the schools. So I believe this is one of the very significant milestone in our education system. Furthermore, there's an important decision we recently took related with the A-level or higher secondary education. So that is one of our key priority or key policy priority to expand A-level in our country. And then to do this, definitely we need a lot of data. And we need to analyze a multiple set of data to expand our A-level. So one of our target is to come up with universal access to higher secondary education in the country, and hopefully we will pilot this program in September this year. And in the second presentation, Dr. Nina mentioned about the importance of data in the policy development, especially in the area of training teachers, training human resource, and also the importance of data in the area of improving teaching strategies, especially teachers who deal with students with disabilities. And also the importance of data in the area of infrastructure building as well. And from these two presentations, we identified that how important it is to use data even when we go with infrastructure development as well. Geospatial data can be used when we try to construct new buildings or new schools in Hulu Malé as well, because geospatial data really provides a lot of information, and even we can use it to identify the catchment areas as well when we try to build new schools in different areas of the country, especially in Hulu Malé. The third presenter Dr. Harsha mentioned about the multiplayer grant that we have already developed, and we are going to submit our proposal to GP hopefully end of this week. And then hopefully we can secure $3 million to build to develop a new localized EMIS for our education system. And I believe that when we develop this EMIS, we need to integrate AI, because when we explore different EMIS systems in UK or in different European countries or in developed countries, now AI is inbuilt in EMIS systems. The EMIS systems, the data will tell us this student requires special attention. This student requires ICP. When we entered all the different data related with the special education or special areas of the child, and when we enter the data into the EMIS will definitely provide us different guidances and strategies and a lot of things when we inbuilt AI into the system. So that is one of our focus, and inshallah we'll try to inbuild AI when we develop the EMIS in a near future when we get the multiplier grant. Hopefully we'll be able to secure the grant in a month of time. And just now, as the last presenter, Mazina mentioned about the transformation agenda that we have already developed this transformation grant, and we submit this grant to GP board, and GP board already approved $5 million for us to bring this transformation in our education system. And then she has highlighted all the three major key domains of our transformation agenda, having the inclusivity and equity as a policy priority for GP funding. And I'd also like to say that it was lucky enough for me to engage in the development of partnership compact with a team of members from MNU about one and a half year back. So we involved in the partnership compact, and all these grants are developed based on the partnership compact that we submitted to the GP maybe one and a half year back. So it is really lucky for me to engage in that, because I'm very aware of all the different areas of the compact, and then all the grants are developed based on the compact. And one of the key area that Mazi highlighted in her presentation is the significance of the KIX agenda, and the KIX agenda should be linked with our transformation agenda of the country's education system. So I think hopefully we can highlight that area as well. So before I conclude, I also apologize from the presenter and also from the KIX forum of using a pet name to come with the private primary school. Thank you very much, and I hand over to our moderator to open for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad. Thank you for your remarks, Dr. Ahmad. Now we will open for questions. If you have any question to any of the speakers, please forward. I think we're gonna have a mic to the audience.
Yeah,
there's one
Javier
at the back.
Javier at the back.
Hi, and thank you, and congratulations for the speakers. Excellent presentation, showing excellent research projects, products, and of course, a lot of very interesting things coming in the multiplier grant and the grants and the implementation of UNICEF. But I would like to take the opportunity maybe to challenge or motivate a little bit to Dr. He's maybe someone on what is next on the geospatial project, no, and also what's next on the second project on the students with special pathway. What's the name they use? Complex
Complex learning profile.
No, so what next? How, if that is something that we think should be included in the MEs, how we will do to include in the MEs, how we will preserve the issues of I mean, keep the information of the students not to share no sensitive information with students, but at the same time make sure that the information is there to be used for policy purposes. But also, Harsha is not here anymore, but to Mazin from UNICEF, not like she mentioned some actions like the digitalization of the curriculum that we think may be generating information that eventually could be used through some artificial intelligence tools to provide information to the development of education policy and actually be part of the MEs eventually. No, so if how are you planning on sharing that information? Is something that have you guys been thinking of? Something that you may think about in the future? But no, the point here is that now in this new world, no, we are generating information, and I think it's key that almost in everything we do. No, so it's key that how we use that information to improve policy making in the future. I stop there. Thank you.
So I think there are few questions involved in that, right? So one was to do with the complex student with complex learning profile, and then privacy of the digital system. I got some of that, right? And what is on the agenda in terms of learning loss and regarding KIX? I think something, yeah. Yeah, any speaker who would like to respond to that? Nina, what about what's on agenda regarding student with complex learning profile?
If anyone wants to contribute, that's also good. Or Dr. Nina can answer that question. Or from DOI side, you may have a good background to answer that question. Is Adila there? Adila is not there. I think yeah.
It's important to integrate the learning concept by developing the EMS. It's important to the market. I think while developing EMS, it is important to integrate the learning outcomes so that we can monitor the students learning through EMS. So to think about what within the development.
Thank you. Regarding the data security, one of the reasons why we wanted to have our own localized EMIS is to have a secured system with us. And also, we are very keen on the area of data security, because at the moment, the existing EMIS is from Singapore, a Singapore company. So definitely, that's one of the reasons why we don't want to continue with the Singapore company anymore. And then we want to come up with our local EMIS, our own developed, localized one, which should be hosted in our country, or the data must be within our hand with all the control. And thank you.
I hope we have provided some answers at least to your questions. Any further question from the audience?
If there's no question, I just want to share one of the very, I would say, like, very important news that we got during the World Education Forum, and also the Education Ministers Conference which held in London last week. And then myself and our minister attended these two events. And the Minister of Education Minister from New Zealand, it's a surprising news. She told us that they are going to revise their curriculum. The reason is they are not happy with the competency-based curriculum which they have now. And then the education minister told us when they started using this curriculum, their students' ability in terms of knowledge area went down. And then they want to come up with a more balanced one with a knowledge-based and competency-based and skill-based, but now it is more like a competency-based one. And they find, and even all the political parties agreed, that the New Zealand curriculum has to be revised very soon. And they started the work and they started the revision. But the surprising thing is our curriculum was developed heavily based on New Zealand curriculum. And now my question is, do we have enough data with us to revise our curriculum? Do we have enough evidence on the area of curriculum implementation with us to come up with any more further policy decisions on this? So it is a responsibility for every one of us, even the researchers, practitioners, the teachers, to come up with action research, and all the researchers to research on this area. So while we are using a curriculum which brought a lot of good practices from the New Zealand curriculum, but now they realize that this is the time for them to change the curriculum. Then now this is something alarming. From my side, I believe this is something alarming. Thank you very much. So I just wanted to share this surprising news with you all. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you everyone. I think this concludes our panel for this session. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you once again for the panel, and it was quite informative. And let me tell you, taking forward the transformative learning agenda with for the students with complex learning profile, Mazi highlighted in her presentation also that the policy priority for the partnership compact and the all the program documents, the grants that we are developing is based mainly on inclusivity and equity. So all this is going to go forward, and we hope that within the next 4 years, during the process of implementation of these grants, we will see huge change, a progress in this area. With that, I would like to end the first half of today's forum and invite you to the lunch outside. Thank you.